kind of piece of shit that doesn't care. Beto O'Rourke gave me the courage 2 days later to stand up to this governor. Beto O'Rourke gave me the courage to go out and fight for these people in Uvalde and all across Texas. Beto O'Rourke has been fighting for us for years and years, and it's time that we get it in. He had the courage to fight people that froze in their houses. I asked a Republican friend of mine, I said, hey man, how's your cousin? I do have a few Republican friends. He's a boy. I said, how's your name? I haven't seen him. He said, this is, I said, no. I said, well, she got to say it. And she was in her car when the winter freeze came. And she turned on the stove. And she found there frozen. 800 people died. This man's been talking about it. He's had the courage to talk about it. He's had the courage to not stop talking about it. Those people died because of Greg Abbott. Those people died because of the market system that he created. Those people died because this governor doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care about rural Texas, and he doesn't care about Eagle Pass. I promise you that. So I want you to put your hands together for today's day.
It makes me so proud to know that this community is represented in the Texas Senate by someone like Roland Gutierrez, who is an absolute fighter and a champion. He does not care. It does not matter to him whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, whether you've ever voted in an election at all. He knows that you placed him into that position of public trust, and he's going to do everything he can with that position of power to deliver for you. He's doing that for those families in Uvalde day in and day out, and he will not stop until they get justice. He will not stop until they get action. He will not stop until we have the change that we need to make sure that no other family endures what these families in Uvalde are going through right now. Thank you for introducing me, for being such a good friend of this community, to me, and to making sure we have what we need. I want you to also take stock of these two extraordinary statewide candidates who just had the chance to introduce themselves to all of us. Susan Hayes is going to be a fierce advocate for rural Texas, for every community across the 254 counties. She is unafraid of anybody. It does not matter how much power they have. And she will represent everyone. It does not matter how much power they have been withheld from. She is there for each and every single one of us. And I want you to imagine this. Imagine if, instead of an attorney general that we are deeply ashamed of, who's been indicted twice, who's under active FBI investigation, who hurts instead of helps the people of Texas, we had someone like Rochelle Garza in that position of power, who is fighting for us each and every single day. This is our future. This is why we have to get behind her, Susan Hayes, every Democrat in power, to make sure we have those who have our best interests at heart. And lastly, I want to say this before I begin with our remarks. We would not be here but for the Changona, the chairwoman in Chingona and Company Juanita Martinez, who not only ensured that we came here today and brought us all together, but no matter where we are traveling across the state of Texas, there's a good chance that we are going to see Juanita and others that she brings with her from Maverick County. So, Juanita, I want to thank you for all of the great work that you've done, all the people that you've inspired in this community. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start with the big news of the day. We are going to win this election. We're going to win this together. We're going to win because we're going to make sure that in our Texas, every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future. We're going to win because we're going to put our kids' lives ahead of the interests of the NRA or the government. We're going to win because we have the backs of our school teachers and counselors and librarians. want to be able to be seen closer to home, want to be treated with the dignity and respect that they earn, that they deserve, that each of us owe them. When I am governor, because you put me in that position of public trust, we will spare no expense to serve every person who has served this country. And we will begin by describing what we are for. As I listen to the leadership here in this community, I see such extraordinary opportunity and untapped potential. Let me give you some examples. Imagine if the last major area of Texas that does not have a four-year university had a four-year college to call its own, and it was headquartered right here in Eagle Pass. Imagine the jobs, the educational opportunities, the brain drain is now going to other parts of Texas, that talent, that intellectual capital that stays home right here in Maverick County. Imagine the professors that we would create, the jobs that would spin off, the intellectual capital, the entrepreneurs, the opportunities that we would create right here in this community. Every other part of Texas has its own dedicated four-year university except the Middle Rio Grande. And the capital of Middle Rio Grande is right here in Eagle Pass. Let's be honest with each other right now. You are treated as the stepchild of the border by your current government and by your current state government with current company excluded. They don't see the value that we are here to find for ourselves. This isn't the easiest community to get to. You rarely see those in positions of power or public trust visit you, listen to you, and learn from you to make sure that they can deliver for you. How many open town halls has Greg Abbott held in this community?
Zero!
Questions from you.
Zero!
What if, after this town hall, we commit ourselves not just to that four-year university, but investing in the roads and the connections from Eagle Pass to the rest of this state and the rest of this country? What if we have more four-lane roads that go in and out of Eagle Pass? Expand 57, make sure that we expand 480, treat you with the respect that you deserve, living in the 9th largest economy on the planet today. And we're driving on roads right now that we might find in another part of the world altogether. You deserve your fair share of the state resources that we have. Senator Gutierrez can tell us in the Texas Department of Transportation bank account right now, there is $8 billion going unspent. When we win this election, we're going to start spending it, and we start right here in Eagle Pass. Listening to my friend Robert, who is a water expert in this community and in this region, if we are going to continue to grow, and if we're going to have that four-year university, and if we're going to capitalize on the trade that comes through here from Piedras through Eagle Pass on to the rest of the country, and then back forth, we need to make sure that we have the water resources for the long-term growth of this community. Now listen, it's not the sexiest thing in the world. It's not a headline grabber. You don't hear other candidates talking about it. I'm talking about it right now because I have been listening to you. And you understand, unless we can secure the long-term water viability of Eagle Pass and Maverick County, there will be no Eagle Pass or Maverick County going forward. So hear me right now. I'm going to work with your state senator and your state representative to make sure that we invest the resources in the water infrastructure that you need right here in Eagle Pass. That's going to make sure that we have the infrastructure for the long-term growth of this community. We do that four-year university, that investment in roads, that assurance that we have the water for the long term, that we start bringing down the top jobs in America. The high value, high skill, high wage opportunities that young people right now are leaving Eagle Pass to go find in other parts of this state or other parts of this country. I also live in an EP. Mine is El Paso, in a different part of the border. We have some of the same challenges that you do. It is hard to get to El Paso. If you're going to fly, you take 2 flights from almost any other part of the country, sometimes from any other part of the state. We've never received our fair share of resources, and whenever the governor talks about us, it's as though we're some kind of security problem to be walled off or fenced away or just to scare other people in Texas about who we are versus the extraordinary potential and opportunity that I see in this room. Right now. What if, when we win this election, in public education, what if that included universal all-day pre-K for our 3 and 4-year-olds so they can begin learning to read at that tender age so that they're just as competitive as any kid in any other part of the state? What about those who live in this community with intellectual disabilities who right now are on an 18-year wait list for state-supported services? What if instead of 18 years, it was 18 days to get those services, to be taken to the one place they're guaranteed any kind of care at all? And what if $20 a night to keep that person locked up? Let me tell you, there's a solution for that. And when we win this election, we are going to bring back our federal income taxes, $10 billion a year, to expand Medicaid in the state of Texas, to connect more people with care, to make sure you can get that insulin, see that doctor, go to a mental health care provider, be healthy enough and well enough to live to your full potential, to rise to your promise, to reveal your genes, yourself, your family, your neighbors, and for all of us as a state. Think about what I'm talking about right here. Because some of us are Democrats, and I love that you're here. Others are Republicans, and you're just as welcome. Independents, we want you here as well. The agenda that I'm describing is one that can bring us together in these very divided times. Hear what I said. I talked about investing in infrastructure that attracts better, higher-paying jobs. I talked about getting behind our public school educators, our teachers, our counselors, and our librarians, so we elevate the level of public education in the state of Texas. I talked about making sure that you can see a doctor or fill a prescription or take your kid to a mental health care provider. There are many things that we may disagree with, but on this much, I think we can come together. But let me tell you what we're up against right now. If that vision appeals to you, if you want to see us do the big things in Texas again, then this is what we must overcome. And that is Greg Abbott, perhaps the worst governor in the United States of America today. Let me make my case. 9 days. It has been 9 days since his trigger law went into effect. That means that abortion is banned in the state of Texas now, with no exception for rape and no exception for incest. And it begins at conception in a state that has one of the highest levels of maternal mortality in the world. That means that we are losing women in this state faster than we are almost anywhere else in this country, and women of color, specifically black women, we are losing faster than almost anywhere else in the developed world, bar none. Now, not only do I not agree with that, maybe you don't either, 78% of Republicans in the state of Texas think that this law is far too extreme. It is hurting, and ultimately it will kill the women of Texas. When I give you the numbers, I said 9 days since that became law. It is now more than 14 weeks since those 19 children and their 2 teachers in Uvalde were taken from us. Those teachers who sacrificed every day of their working lives to try to connect with those kids, though they were not paid enough just to work one job, maybe they had to take 2 or 3. They had to deal with the STAR test, the bureaucracy, the hoops that they had to every single day to make sure that they can help those kids live to their full potential. They were willing to sacrifice their very lives to try to make sure that those kids could get ahead. But you know what they were up against? Not only an 18-year-old with an AR-15 and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, a firearm originally developed for use in Vietnam to knock an enemy soldier down dead at 500 yards, to penetrate a steel helmet. Those kids at 5 feet, not 500 yards, with nothing on their head but a baseball cap, were absolutely defenseless. Their parents could only identify them by the shoes that they were wearing or a DNA swab that was taken. But those kids were not just up against that gun and that AR-15 and those high-impact, high-velocity rounds that hit their body. They were up against a government who would not lift a finger to prevent this from happening. As Senator Gutierrez said, we had the massacre at Santa Fe High School in 2018, the massacre in a church in Sutherland Springs, the massacre in my hometown of El Paso in 2019 that claimed the lives of 23 people. A month later, it was Midland, Odessa, 8 people killed and taken from us. 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history have taken place in this state in the last 5 years on Greg Abbott's watch. And the man who could call a special session to go after transgender kids, the man who could call a special session to go after critical race theory, the man who could call a special session to weaken our voting laws and our ability to choose the candidates of our own choice, could not be bothered to call a special session to protect our kids as they enter the classroom this very week all across the state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, we must replace him. We need change. We need someone who can accomplish these things and find the common ground. Now, whether that is raising the minimum age of purchase from 18 to 21 for an AR-15, or having a red flag law so we can intervene before it is too late, or having a universal background check, which would do more than what we have today, which says, look, if you go to a gun shop, there's going to be some due diligence, some vetting. But if you buy from a private seller, there's none of that, no questions asked. That's how we lost those 8 people in Midland, Odessa. Those 3 things, listen, again, we may not agree on everything, but raising the age, a red flag law, a universal background check, on that much, Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, non-gun owners alike can find the common ground in order to make a difference. Let me give you another number. 18 months. Senator Gutierrez referred to this. 18 months since the genius in power could not keep the power on for you when the temperature dropped last February. Hundreds of our fellow Texans literally froze to death in the energy capital of the world. We have an embarrassment of riches, whether it's oil and gas or wind or solar. You name it, it is right here in Texas. But because he was warned and did nothing to address the underlying vulnerabilities, not only did we freeze in our homes, but we're now each paying $45 more per month on our electricity bills, as though to add insult to injury. He allowed the energy traders and the pipeline CEOs to literally make a fortune off the backs of our fellow Texans who were suffering last winter. $11 billion was stolen from us. Well, there's an answer to this as well. After we win, we connect our grid, ERCOT, with the national grid so we can pull down power when we need it. We winterize and weatherize every single part of our grid infrastructure, and we make sure that the $11 billion stolen from us is recovered and returned to the ratepayers to bring your electricity bills down. You all get behind that one? It would be nice to have some savings right now. Last thing that I want to say, and it's been on my mind and on my heart, and I'm sure the same for you. We learned yesterday that 8 people, 8 human beings, attempting to come to this country, lost their lives in this river. We also know that the heroic men and women, the Border Patrol, the local fire department, sheriff's office willingly risk their lives to try to save the lives of others and to retrieve the bodies of those whom we lost. Just in the Del Rio sector, over the course of this last year, we have lost 218 people. We also lost Bishop Evans, member of the Guard, who heroically went into that river trying to save migrants. I will tell you, Democrats, Republicans alike, we have failed the people of this community. We have failed those men and women in law enforcement and the Border Patrol on whose backs is borne our entire immigration policy right now, because we have failed to rewrite our immigration laws since Ronald Reagan was president. That was the last time that we even so much as tried 218 people. Let us put ourselves in their minds, in their hearts, and in their shoes. No one risks the lives of their kids for kicks, or to steal a job, or to take someone else's place in this country. I have to think about what it would take for me to take my 11-year-old son Henry by the hand and to attempt that same process. I would only do it if it was the only way I was assured that I might be able to save his life. I knew returning to my home country might very well mean his certain death. I propose to you this, not as a Democrat, but as your fellow Texan, your fellow American, and your fellow human being. Let us come together, regardless of the differences between us, as Texans, and lead the way to rewrite our immigration laws to reflect our values, our interests, and our needs. Let us say this: if you want to come to this country, we welcome you, but you must follow our laws. And on our side, we will rewrite our laws to reflect what we know to be true. That if you want to come here to work and you pose no threat or harm to this country, there should be a safe, legal, orderly path for you to do that. If you want to join families, there should be a safe, legal, orderly path for you to do that. If you are trying to claim asylum, and today it takes 6 years to get an answer back on your asylum request, there must be a safe, legal, orderly path for you to be able to do that. Not 6 years. How about 6 weeks or 6 days? And if the answer is yes, we say welcome. And if the answer is no, and I know this doesn't ride comfortably with everyone, then you must return to your country of origin. We are a nation of laws. It's what sets us apart from so much of the rest of the world. If you want to do right for those who seek to come to this country to do better for themselves and to do better for all of us, we should do this. If we seek to do right by those members of the Border Patrol and law enforcement who willingly risk their lives on a daily and nightly basis for all of us, we must make these changes. And if we want to continue to be the shining example in the world, 246 years and counting, we must do this. No more stunts, no more buses to Chicago or Washington or New York. That's not going to fix the problem or save the lives or make this better. Let's meet this challenge with the solutions of the people of Texas. And let's start with here. You with me on this? All right. Listen, let me close with this. And then Cynthia's got another microphone. I told you that I came to listen. I came to learn. I came to understand and mean it. Before I do that, though, let me just say this. We would love for you to be part of this victory. There are a number of volunteers today in yellow reflective vests. Each of them is holding a clipboard. And on that clipboard are opportunities for you to sign up, to be able to join us knocking on the doors of those voters who are going to decide the outcome of this next election. Now, we know that in 2020, 7 million eligible Texans did not cast a ballot. Not because they're lazy, not for any lack of love for this great democracy, but because this state has made it so hard for too many to fully participate. We show up at their doors, we invite them in, we explain where they can vote early, how to vote by mail, what it means to vote in person on election day, and there's a far better chance that they are going to join us. And again, I say this campaign is not being run by and for Democrats or independents or Republicans. It is for all Texans. No me importa. It does not matter to me the differences between us. This is a time for Texans to come together and do great things. Let's do this in the past. Thank you for coming out here today. Juanita, thank you for organizing us. Cynthia Thomas back there, right below. She's going to make sure we get a chance to hear from you.
Raise your hand, and I will come to you. Just make sure that you please keep it to one question so we can get to our people.
Gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Pero un momento, después de la pregunta.
Just from a personal perspective, I've come across at least 10 different groups of Venezuelans as migrants. They've all come with their children, hungry, in need, and all wanting to travel to San Antonio. Why is our governor right now trying to waste money that we could be using to send them to wherever their relatives are in the country? And at the same time, can we count on you to work with the federal government, such as Biden or Kamala, to focus on the countries that are actually in need? Because I don't think that Honduras necessarily cut it. If 10 out of the dozens of families I've been seeing are Venezuelans, shouldn't we be focusing and talking with the Venezuelan government on our migrant policies then?
This is a great question. Listen, I mentioned it's been since Ronald Reagan that we had any reform to our immigration laws. Think about how much has changed in the world since then. If we look at the Northern Triangle of Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, 3 of the deadliest countries on the face of the planet, bar none. You don't travel 2,000 miles with your 8-year-old girl unless you have to travel 2,000 miles with your 8-year-old girl. That is what people are doing right now. And in Venezuela, this corrupt, anti-democratic regime that is at war with its own people is driving them out in every direction. I think the country of Colombia has accepted something casi como 1 million people so far. It shouldn't surprise us that many tens of thousands are trying to emigrate or seek refuge in this country. Again, I want to make this very clear, crystal clear. We welcome them to come to attempt to claim asylum. They must follow our laws when they do that. They must not attempt to cross in between ports of entry. Not only do they risk their lives, they risk the lives of first responders in this community. But to the gentleman's point, if we are waiting 2,000 miles, 9 months after they started this journey to try to fix it, we are 2,000 miles and 9 months too late. Why are we not today in Venezuela speaking to leaders on the ground, whether it's the current regime, whether it is NGOs, whether it is partner countries, including Colombia and other countries in the region, Costa Rica as well, that might be able to assist us in averting what could be a humanitarian crisis right here in Eagle Pass. We have got to do better. Listen, I'm a Democrat, and listen, I voted for Joe Biden, but listen to me right now. He must do more to make this a priority. And that means going down to these countries and working on solutions. Otherwise, we'll continue to meet this challenge right here in Eagle Pass, right there in Del Rio, right there in my hometown of El Paso, Texas. I mentioned earlier, so often we are treated as the stepchildren of the board, of the state, of the country for that matter. We are forced to bear the brunt of our failures that are made in Washington, D.C., or half the world away. It is time that we start holding those in positions of power to do something accountable for getting the job done. So yes, let's work on a hemispheric solution. It has to start with the president. We must hold him accountable, as well as those who represent us in Congress right now. Thanks for asking this question.
Y yo siempre que apoyaba. Muchas veces yo te recibí el aviso de hoy y unos veteranos, y te digo se me apoya. Y soy líder de colonias. Las colonias no tenemos agua. Hay más de 20 colonias que no tenemos agua. Y yo soy líder de esas colonias. Pusimos a 8 colonias, 7 colonias, pero hay 180 familias de que nadan en la colonia Colón. Tienen 20 años exigiendo agua y no les han dado nada. Yo hace 20 años traje un gremio de 50 millones de dólares para las colonias. ¿Dónde quedó ese gremio? No lo usamos todo. Estaba el gobernador Ripel, el gobernador, el señor Tabaja, Pepe Aranda era el juez, y fue el que hizo todo eso. ¿Dónde quedó ese dinero? Son 50 millones de dólares para las colonias. ¿Dónde quedó? Queremos sábado final. Y espero que usted nos ayude. Yo me doy voluntario con ustedes en las colonias. Y colonia por colonia.
No es que hay más de 20 colonias que no tienen agua. Merecen agua, merecen el tratamiento que tenemos en la ciudad misma o cualquier ciudad aquí en los Estados Unidos. Usted paga sus impuestos, sigue la ley y necesita tener agua y los otros servicios modernos que tenemos aquí en el estado de Texas. Yo voy a ser el socio con su fuerza y la fuerza que vamos a tener aquí. Con los recursos que necesitamos, que merecemos aquí, vamos a poner la inversión que necesitamos para que usted pueda depender de la agua de su casa y las colonias. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Muchísimas gracias, señor.
Hey there. My name is Eli. I'm a registered nurse here in Eagle Pass. I moved here about 4 years ago with my partner Elias Diaz, and the pandemic hit us. We weren't expecting it. We weren't ready. When the pandemic hit New York City, I deployed out there for 3 weeks, no days off. We worked tirelessly. I haven't seen that many people die ever in my life. Then it made its way through the country and it hit Eagle Pass, and I was here as well with doing the vaccines when they were available, tracing, and the emergency room. In Eagle Pass, 30% of people under 65 per the census do not have healthcare insurance. It means they were using the emergency room as a form of primary care, and they did not come to the emergency room until it was too late. Pneumonia was already set in their lungs, they couldn't breathe, they couldn't afford to go to a doctor for preventative care, early onset symptom care, and it was hard. And a lot of us lost a lot of people in Maverick County. So my question is to you, what does healthcare look like in an uninsured county like Maverick County when you're governor?
Eli, thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do. You're one of our heroes. Someone else who's risked their lives so that all of us can live ours. Like Maverick County, like Eagle Pass, Webb County and Laredo were hit particularly hard. Starr County, the Rio Grande Valley hit particularly hard. My hometown of El Paso, my home county of El Paso, deadliest county, 2 summers ago for COVID, bar none in the country. We lost so many people that we set up not 1, but 10 mobile wars in my hometown. We had to call in the National Guard to move the bodies. We lost very good friends. I lost somebody very dear to me, Javier Diaz, who at the age of 17, with his mother's permission and consent, signed up to enlist in the Marines to go serve in Korea, fought in one of the bloodiest, most difficult battles at Joseph Reservoir, came back to El Paso, served his community in every civic capacity you can imagine, died alone in a hospital of COVID, while our county judge was fighting Governor Abbott, because the governor prevented him from being able to implement the public health safeguards that might have otherwise saved his life. So what does healthcare look like after we win this election? I mentioned we're going to bring $10 billion, not of free money, does not grow on trees. This is your federal income taxes that you have dutifully paid up to Washington, D.C. We're going to bring that back to Texas. We're going to hire more providers. We're going to stand up more clinics and hospitals. We're going to reopen many of the 16 closed rural clinics that have shut down on Greg Abbott's watch. We're going to connect people with prescriptions that will extend and save their lives. We're going to make sure, let me put it in the simplest terms that I can understand, that you're healthy enough and you're well enough to finish your education, to go to work, to start a job, to create a business, to raise your family, whatever you were put on this planet to do in the first place. I just want to make sure you're well enough to get that done. Unless you think that this Medicaid expansion, this $10 billion a year that's going to come into Texas, is some kind of Democratic pipe dream. All four of our border states, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, 3 with Republican governors, have all taken the expansion deal. So in addition to expanding Medicaid, we are going to trust healthcare providers in their communities. You say that you need help. We are there to be your partner. I mentioned earlier in the question about Colonias and water and working with your incoming county judge, or for the senator, the judge, the state representative, these amazing members of the city council right here. You as well. You tell me you have a need as governor, I will be here to meet it. We want to make sure that this community is healthy and well, because to Eli's point, I keep saying all over this state that we're the least insured state in America, but today we sit or stand in the least insured part of the least insured state in America. We're losing our friends, family, our neighbors far too quickly, and at too young an age. We can do better. Thank you, Eli, for showing us so much. Appreciate it.
This is going to be our last question right here.
No, la mía.
Thank you for being here.
You know you face your challenges. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for being here. Thanks for recovering. We're always working. Thanks, my name is, I work in Amarillo. My name is Sergio. Or I was born in Maverick, so Maverick is Sergio, ¿verdad? Yeah. So I was lucky enough to introduce you at a rally in Amarillo a few years ago when you were running against Rafael. So it's good to see you again. So here's my question: is I live in San Antonio, but my parents live here in Eagle Pass, and they wanted to come see you, so I drove down so we could see you.
Thank you for bringing me.
And they have not been disappointed. Thank you. So here's my question: is whenever I drive that corridor off of I-35 to Eagle Pass, between Eagle Pass and San Antonio, I've seen as many as 20 somewhat EPS vehicles. So my concern is that people, me and people that look like me, are being policed, and we don't even recognize them at times. So we've got that happening, and in Uvalde, with so many officers, so many law enforcement in the area, in Uvalde it was a dismal failure because they weren't able to save those people, and it appears as though no one really tried. And I know this about Stephen McGraw, the colonel. He is getting a Distinguished Alumni Award from his alma mater in the Panhandle at the end of this month. The only way I know him is through the Uvalde fiasco. And it breaks my heart that happened because I have children, I have nieces and nephews, and that's horrible. But my concern is, what do we do as a people because we are being policed? We are, because often people don't make that distinction when you're criticizing someone coming over the border because of what they are, who they are, and what their perceived actions are going to be in the future. So how do we overcome that? How do you help us overcome that? Because it's important. No matter what we do or who we are, we're all connected because we all look alike, and we need to know.
Thank you for this good question. Listen, I keep talking about wanting to be a partner to Maverick County, and I really mean it. If the sheriff of Maverick County doesn't matter who they support, their party, anything between us, as governor, I serve this community. If the sheriff says we need DPS troopers here in Maverick County, we're going to send DPS troopers to Maverick County. But there's a difference between that and imposing a surge unlike any we have ever seen in the history of Texas. And Sergio, let me tell you something that I've learned as I listen to folks across the Panhandle, North Texas, and East Texas, Central Texas as well. This last year was the deadliest year on Texas highways since 1980. As we pull all of these troopers through Operation Lone Star off of our roads, streets, made it more dangerous for those of us who have no patrol help whatsoever. And as you mentioned, in some communities, we are over-patrolling today. In some parts of the Rio Grande Valley, they have seen tickets written up 1,000% since Operation Lone Star went into effect. Now listen, I want to do nothing to diminish the important work that those troopers do. Again, there's somebody who go out every single day doing their level best to keep us safe, and they risk their own lives in order to do that. We are grateful for that. So the fault lies not with them, but with the governor who makes the policy and uses their service in a way that does not help the public safety generally across the state. I want to make sure that we foster as much respect and trust for law enforcement. Because when I listen to DPS troopers and police officers and sheriff's deputies, they say that is fundamental to public safety. If people in the community trust what they say, then they're more likely to report a crime, or serve as a witness, or testify in trial, or bring a perpetrator to justice in the state. I want to make sure that we have that level of trust today. Greg is eroding it every single day that he's in office. And Cynthia, last question, this came up earlier, and I said that I would address this. The young lady's asking me about the minimum wage in the state of Texas. We know that right now we're 13 years at $7.25 an hour. If you work $7.25 an hour, you're not working one job. You're working 2 jobs. You're maybe working 3 jobs. You're on public assistance. You're getting support from family members or friends. It is almost impossible. In fact, it is to make ends meet from just one minimum wage job in the state of Texas. So in addition to making these investments in child and all-day clinical and expanding Medicaid, we are going to raise the minimum wage in the state of Texas so that you work one job, not 2, not 3, in order to make ends meet.
I'm so sorry, if we can not let me move until Beth can ask a question. So she's going to
You're
be
leaving
there
one
less
table.
than a minute, yes, and then she's going to do one super quick, and then I'm going to head out.
Okay, that sounds good.
Gracias, Interpreto. Mire, mi pregunta es, ¿usted puede hacer algo sobre lo que está pasando ahorita? Aquí en La Paz somos personas grandes, aficionadas, nos estamos volviendo locas porque vemos gente por todos lados. No es nomás lo que está pasando ahí. Murió una persona, una gente, se supo, en la mañana 54 personas que murieron. ¿Cuántos no se han muerto? Pueden hacer algo, no sé qué, por más agentes que traigan, por más policías que pongan, los jóvenes se están arriesgando también.
Sí.
Yo creo que hay una cosa que pueden hacer mejor, no sé qué, pero por favor piénsenla, porque si estamos, hasta nosotros a lo mejor no van a tener un lugar para meternos en un lugar de 20.
Sí.
Gracias.
Es muy importante y vamos a trabajar juntos como comunidad, incluyendo republicanos y demócratas en este tema tan importante. Tenemos el liderazgo aquí y en la nivel estatal. Juntos yo sé que podemos hacerlo. Gracias por la oportunidad de estar con nosotros.
All
Gracias.
right, this for sure is our next question. But we are going to stay, we're going to say hi, take pictures if you'd like to. We're going to be up on the stage and we'll have a chance to say hi.
My son was killed in 2013 by a Vietnam veteran, 71 years of age, who had been in and out of mental hospitals all his life. And my son was walking out of the mall, and the man shot him straight in the heart. And that wasn't bad enough. In Uvalde, his son was in the high school. And that happened, and it was very traumatic for him. And when he got out, we found out his girlfriend's brother had been killed. What can we do to help stop these, that there's anybody can go buy a gun. What can we do to hold people accountable that are selling those guns to people that shouldn't have one? And, I have to bring back my son, and I know unfortunately the man died in prison because when I talked to the homicide detective, he said, your son was murdered, and I said, murdered? He said, yes. And when I went to investigate where he lived in an assisted
Thank you for being here, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm grateful for your courage, your willingness to share this story so that we understand this not as a statistic or a number or an abstract problem. This is your life. This is your son's life. Earlier, when we were talking about the 14 weeks that have passed since 2000, and I talked about what the governor has done in the special session, what I'm doing as governor, I think it will address many of the challenges that you're raising. For example, a universal background check would protect us from those who today purchase a firearm from a private seller when they cannot pass a background check at a licensed gun dealer. Perhaps in the example you just gave us, there would be some flags on that person's record about their suitability to have a firearm because they're a danger to themselves or they're a danger to other people. Another idea is a red flag. It says that that person already has the firearm, but they're acting erratically. They are threatening to hurt people. They're being violent to themselves or other people. We can, through due process, remove that gun from their home before it is too late. Return it to them after all reasonable concerns have been addressed. Now, not everyone's going to agree on everything related to the Second Amendment or how we address gun violence in the state. Those two ideas have nearly universal support in the state of Texas. They'll save lives, and they're in keeping with this long, proud tradition we have of responsible gun ownership. Like many in this room, I grew up with firearms in my home, and I grew up learning the responsibility that comes with owning that gun. It's something that we passed on to our 3 kids. We teach them how to shoot, but also how to store the firearm, how to use it, and how not to use it. I just want to make sure that that is in our laws so that we can continue with our traditions, but make sure that we also do a better job of protecting the people in our lives going forward. Thank you so much for asking this question, for being part of this solution. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, people.